fast, die young.
Hello and welcome to the first time I've been live on a Saturday night with the Outcast Creative channel. You may well watch this later, and this is a retro review section of two of my older favourite films, both about exploring the inner body, but we won't go there. But before I get into all that, because doing live streams on your own is really quite boring, I always try to have a co-host on. Preferably someone who is more charming and better looking than myself. You'll just have to pretend she is because she's not going to be on camera. But I'd like to welcome Lady GRAVEMASTER, who's had me on her channel a couple of times, I think.
Yeah, hi.
I think it's twice I've been on. I think it's twice I've been on your channel. So I'm so glad to return the favor, even though no one's watching right now. But I don't care. I'm going to keep doing these. I'm putting a lot more energy into my channel this year. It's one of my New Year's resolutions.
Awesome.
And we have just hit 1,000 subscribers.
Yay! Congratulations! Yay!
I was teetering around the 800 mark for so long, and like at one point we hit 850, and then I was away. I was in the States for a couple of months and things like that, and then I came back and it had gone down to 800 again, and I was thinking, oh, I haven't been putting out content, so people have gone. So yeah, I'm determined to put stuff out, and I've also got a book coming out this year called 1988, which is based on the diary of my my journey to America. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, so I've got a croaky voice and I've got a cold because I've just done a 2-hour stream on someone else's channel. But yeah, I saw more good films that year than any other year in a single year. And the diary that I kept, look at this, is here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is the real thing. And look, you'll be well impressed at this because I kept all my postcards and everything. Here's a list of all the films that I saw in America. Can you see that?
I love it. Oh my goodness. Gosh, you were busy.
And I'm well, on my day off from the summer camp, I would hitch into Sangertown Mall in Utica, just outside Syracuse.
Yep.
And I'd go to the multiplex and I'd stay there all day. I'd see 4 films in a row.
Gosh.
Because I was just such a massive look. And this is what my writing looked like. Look at that every day. So what I'm doing is I'm turning this into a novel straight from the diary. Quite embarrassing. It just reads like a season of Dawson's Creek. And, you know, about this girl I fancied or whatever. And I'm also reviewing all the movies that I saw. So you're going to have all the reviews of the films throughout the diary as well. I think it's quite a cool idea for a book, right?
That is a really cool idea. It's literally a day. It's a year in the life of, and you get to go on this journey with you and then see what you got to see and what you thought of it. That's amazing.
And it's a time that doesn't exist anymore. Now, look, check this out, right? This is from one of your American newspapers. And here it is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, look at the films that were on. Look, Die Hard. And I saw it before anyone in the UK because it didn't come out until the following year in the UK. Big. Midnight Run, which is a great film. Coming to America, The Rescue, not so great. The Blob remake I thought was very good. You had Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There was re-releasing Bambi that year, which I didn't go and see. And Cocktail.
Cocktail. Cocktail.
I quite enjoyed Cocktail. It's quite fun. Quite fun.
Cocktail is a good one.
Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about, which is 2 of my older favorite movies, and I believe 2 of your older favorite movies also, although you're not as old as me. I don't think anybody is, are they? And but before we dive into that, just tell people a little bit about yourself, and you've got a channel as well, and what stuff you put on there. I like to do that at the beginning as well as the end. So,
So my name, my Lady Gravemaster. Some people call me Lady G. But I cover pop culture things. I cover some politics things when it sort of crosses over into entertainment or pop culture sphere on my channel. My Twitter, I do a whole bunch of stuff, but for my channel, I really try to focus just on entertainment and film and music, art, reading. I have a book club that I have to pick back up. My in real life has been a bit crazy lately, but I do
well, you
love
don't have to get into all that. I mean, but you
no,
can, but you don't have to.
it's just been a little bit crazy. But if you go to my channel, I cover everything from Lord of the Rings is a passion of mine,
Oh, me
but
too.
oh gosh, I love it so much. But I love classic literature. Redwall was my favorite book as a child until I found Lord of the Rings. But I love Redwall, King Killer Chronicles, um, Raymond D. Feist's work is just like his work is just
So
amazing.
you've read Magician?
Yes, Magician is
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, I read
The
that.
the Rift War saga, there's so many books in it, and so I'm chipping away at that as well. Um,
Yeah, they've been
and
talking about making Rift War as either a movie or a
they
TV show
they're
forever. I
gonna
don't know if they're any further with it, but
yeah, they're making it into a series and it's been updated for modern audiences. So
oh dear, I don't like
I'm
the
gonna
sound of that.
probably be tearing that one apart because I just I I hate what has happened because it used to be if you were going to make an adaptation of a book, you tried to be as true to the source material as possible because that's where you were guaranteed a fan base because the fan base is there for a
Sure.
reason.
Yeah, yeah.
And for whatever reason, we've just abandoned or well, not we, but the entertainment industry has just abandoned that common sense approach. But that's the kind of stuff that I cover over on my channel. Um, I talk like I said, books, music, film. I only talk about politics when it crosses that sphere. Unfortunately, of late, people have been trying to shove politics and entertainment into the same sphere, and I
You
wish that
sure?
was not the case, but it sadly is. Um, so yeah, and Steve Kenobi and I have an 80 stream that we're gonna be picking back up soon, where it's actually turned into more than that. We cover two films from the same year. We give homework to each other and then we discuss them. But that's kind of why I was really intrigued with this stream because we like you have to give you can't just say, "Oh, you like, vote with your wallet, don't go watch this or don't support this or whatever." I, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money, but I am going to offer you alternatives with your
Yeah,
money.
yeah. That's fair enough.
Because if you're one of those people who's out here like, you don't buy it, don't do it. You should vote with your wallet. You need to walk away. Okay, but you can't you can't ask people to completely abandon um escapism. You have to give them alternatives. And the 80s and the 90s and the 70s, they're rife with incredible storytelling. Some of
Mm,
the early like Lord of the Rings is early 2000. So there's still good film entertainment and books go back, I mean, all the way. We're talking like the Iliad and the Odyssey are fantastic. Sherlock Holmes is fantastic. These books are amazing, and they're still there. So you just have to point people in that direction, and hopefully they sort of pick up that spark. But that's sort of what I try to do on my channel, and hit
sure.
a few other topics as well. That was
Well,
really long, but yeah.
all right. Well, I can't edit it out, but I'll try to intervene in future. Well, look, the link for your channel is already down there, so people do check out Lady
Thank
G's
you.
stuff. And you've had me on before, and I'm
Mhm.
always happy to come on again, especially when you're talking about older movies. And that's in fact when I first got drawn to your channel was when you were talking about Lady Hawk, which is one of my favorite older films. But anyway, let's talk about Fantastic Voyage and Inner Space. Now, to my knowledge, and I might be wrong because there might be an obscure Russian film that I haven't seen, I think these are the only two movies where the main sort of narrative is it's an adventure inside the human body. I
Human
know that's
body.
happened in some TV shows and other
Mhm.
shows, but are there any other movies that do that? I don't think there are.
Not that I am aware of, because even even with shows like Alien, you knew the alien was inside the human body, but you didn't actually go on
No,
that journey.
I mean this is the only time that we go inside a human and people are tiny and
Mhm.
you got Land of the Giants, which is kind of in a similar realm, but that's
Mhm.
that's a TV show, Owen Allen from the 60s. So let's get going. Let's talk about these. Now it's funny that I said to you, hey, I want to do this stream, and then literally within 3 days of that, Raquel Welch passed away.
Yeah.
We'd already decided to do it, so I mean this is entirely a coincidence. So just going
Mhm.
to dedicate this stream to the late great Raquel Welch. And I mean, this is the poster for Fantastic Voyage. Don't think it's a
Mm.
particularly, I have to say, I don't think it's a particularly good poster. Very of its day, very kind of 60s.
Mhm.
But let's get a picture of Miss Welsh up. I'm sure I can find one. There'll be one here. Because, I mean, she looks unbelievably
Mhm.
stunning in this movie.
Yes. Uh, her her character's name is Cora, and she's just she's pure femininity, like,
Yeah.
through the whole film. She's just credible.
There's a
And
there's a line kind of because I watched them both again recently.
mhm.
There's a line right near the beginning where one of the male crew says something to her like, "And I bet you cook. I bet you're really good cook in the kitchen as well."
Yes.
And it's so kind of, well, we're letting you on the mission, but really you should be in the kitchen. And I thought, and she had a comeback for it, which was quite good. But if it was shot now, I think that comeback would be a lot more brutal, like a smack in the
Mm,
chops, probably. Um, but
probably.
yeah, she's that's a very tight version of her uniform she's wearing in that
Mhm.
shot. I'm not sure it's that tight in the movie all the time. Um, and then so Fantastic Voyage was made in 1966. It was the first film that ever sort of did this kind of story. And then Innerspace came out in 87 when I was working at the cinema. So I got to see it at the cinema, like, every night. So I must have watched it, God, dozens of times. And when I rewatched it last week, all of the lines, all of the scenes were all coming back to me. Now, I think the script for Innerspace is really good, and it's for anybody who wants to get into script writing. Innerspace is a good one to just actually examine the script and take it apart. It's a very sort of typical 3-act structure
Mm.
script, and many people may know I'm a script writer. You may not, you do now. So it's a really good example of a well written script, I think. These films are 20 something years apart, nearly
Mm.
30 years apart. Um, Not 30 years apart, 20,
No, 20.
20.
Yeah.
My maths is terrible.
No, yeah, because
But there,
66 to 87,
so
right?
there were, yeah, so there were massive changes in technology
Mhm.
in that time, and also not just technology, but the way films were made, the way they were shot, how inventive people were with the camera, things like that,
Mm.
and also the acting styles.
Yes.
So let's talk about the cast. Let's start with the cast for both films, and going with Fantastic Voyage first. I have to say that of the cast in the movie, I thought that Raquel Welch and Donald Pleasance were the best. and I thought the rest of the male cast in the movie were pretty bad. Their lines were like so flat.
Yeah. They're
Um,
very I think they were going for stoic and it came off as boring.
yeah,
Or like just unenthusiastic. Like they weren't really it's like cuz here's the thing, as an actor or an actress, if you don't buy into your part, then the audience is not going to buy into your part. They're not going to buy into the story. So if you don't buy into the story, you're not going to be enthusiastic about it, and then it's harder for the audience to be enthusiastic about it. So I think they were going for stoic and they missed the mark.
yeah, I'd agree. I'll tell you another thing that's interesting about the male cast of Fantastic Voyage. Nearly all of them died very young.
Mm.
I don't know whether that was because they came too close proximity to Raquel Welch and were overcome by her beauty, and therefore after had a delicate heart condition. But the two leads, the two sort of the commander and the second in command,
Mhm.
they both died in there. One of them died in his 30s, the other one died in his 40s.
Yeah.
So
Not old at all.
So Clueless is on the stream. Hey, Lance and Lady G, good to see you
Hello.
both on a stream again. Spread the word
Yes.
for Clueless. We're determined to get up to 3 viewing figures
Whoop, whoop.
within the next half an hour. So,
I
go on.
Oh no, I was gonna say I remember Stephen Stephen Boyd is it like because he was in Ben-Hur and Genghis Khan. Um,
Yeah, he was pretty good in
he,
Ben-Hur.
yes, and
Um,
so there's a really oh gosh, so I think
that's
it's
The
the
Man Who
left.
Never Was.
Yes, that one, and then there is it's either is it the right hand of the law or the left hand of the law? I can't remember what it is, but he was in a movie and it was something of the law. And
Left Hand of the Law, 1975.
yes,
Yeah.
I loved him in that one. Like I don't think was he just came on screen though, and I was just like, he's very handsome. I was just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
he's very handsome.
I mean, he had what you would call the packaged striking, good-looking man,
Mm-hmm.
leading man face. I mean that
He's got
he's got the dimple in the chin and everything.
yes.
Note
Look
that
at
I
that
also have that.
jawline. Look at that jawline. I was like blown away. And I think Raquel Welch, the two of them together, they looked very good side by side.
Yeah, I mean they had pretty good chemistry. I'd love to know
Yes.
if anything happened behind the scenes there, but because I think he was married at the time. So he died. He was just 45
Oh my
when he
gosh.
passed away. And I mean, he's not bad in Innerspace, but sorry, not Innerspace. We'll come on to that in a minute. He's not bad in Fantastic
Fantastic
Journey, but
Voyage.
it's not his. I don't think the script
Uh,
serves the other actors.
he was better in Ben-Hur than in Fantastic Voyage by a long shot.
Yeah, and the other crew member, which was William Redfield, I believe. You see, he died in 76 at 49, so they both died within a year of each other,
Oh
both in their
wow.
40s. Isn't that nuts?
That is crazy, actually. That is insane. Um, like you can
Let's
call
give
it a coincidence, but that's actually kind of eerie.
It is a bit. Let's give Donald Pleasance a shout out. Now, most people will know him
Mm,
from the original Halloween
yes.
movie.
Mhm.
One of his best roles is in The Great Escape, which is what this still is from. And if you haven't seen that, then clearly you haven't been alive on Christmas Day in England watching BBC One, because it's always on. And
He's
I mean,
Blofeld. That's how I knew
that's
him.
right.
He's
Yeah, I
Blofeld.
mean, he kind of always was Blofeld for me. I think because
Yeah.
he's Blofeld in You Only Live Twice, if I remember
Mhm.
rightly. Yeah.
Yes. And that happens to be I You Only Live Twice gets a lot of flack, and I still to this day don't know why, but I love You Only Live Twice. I love Sean Connery's Bond. The only Bond that I actually prefer over Sean Connery is Pierce Brosnan.
Well, I can tell you why You Only Live Twice gets a lot of flack. I went to see it on re-release at the IMAX. They did a whole season of Bonds, and
Mm-hmm.
I got to see it on the IMAX because I thought, oh, that volcano battle scene is going to be great. And I built that volcano out of Lego, by the way, and I had all my ninjas attacking it. And when I was a kid, I would recreate it, watch a Bond movie, go and recreate it up in the bedroom. And the scene where they make Sean Connery Japanese, that has not aged well, that scene. And
No.
and there was a load of Japanese people in the cinema, and they were just like gasping in shock, didn't know whether to laugh or what to say, you know. But I mean, it's got an amazing, one of the best sets ever built, one of the biggest sets ever
Yes.
built, and just fantastic action. But
But I
anyway,
mean,
let's
yeah,
not get sidetracked
we
too
get
much on
sidetracked
Bond.
on Bond. But yeah, he is and always like he has been who Blofeld has been for me. So like that's who I compared all the other actors who played Blofeld against
So
was Donald
look
Pleasance.
who else had a cameo in Fantastic Voyage, none other than James Brolin.
James Brolin. Oh my goodness.
Now he was a
He
technician.
is in there.
He was a technician. I spent ages trying to find him in the movie, and I think he's a technician in the base. You know, the people like you cut back to the HQ room. Oh my God,
Yeah.
we've got a spammer. I'll just block them quickly. There we go. Yeah, I mean, you know, even when you got 2 viewers on, you got to be careful. So, but another actor I want to mention, who had a successful career in Italian B movies, is Arthur Kennedy. Now I don't know if you've ever seen him in anything, but there is a classic Italian Star Wars ripoff that came out a year later called The Humanoid with Richard Keel from The Spy Who Loved Me. This is The Humanoid. And I tell you what, if you ever watch that film, you and I should do a stream and talk about it because it's an experience and you are going to laugh.
All right, I'll have to remember it.
It's got some classic lines like, those idiots couldn't blow up a star cruiser with a laser gun. We'll get them with our intergalactic stellar ray. And no shit, that's one of the lines in the film. But yeah, that I saw that at the cinema in a double bill with a re-release of Jason and the Argonauts. So but Arthur Kennedy would sort of play kind of dodgy villains, and he was one of those actors you can see if you look on his credits. He's one of those actors that did that Leonardo DiCaprio thing in Quentin Tarantino's film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he went over to Italy in the 60s and 70s and he did a load of Italian sort of spaghetti westerns, crime thrillers. So the tough ones, which Vice Commissioner Rooney played. In fact, I have that. I have the Blu-ray of that here. And that's like a French, kind of a French Connection type, gritty, but it's a gritty Italian version of that kind of thing. And it's proper rough around the edges, you know? And he plays like the commissioner. I'm not going to let you off the hook again, you know, that kind of role.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah. So you'd see him pop up in a lot of these Italian B movies. He did a couple of westerns.
Okay.
And this one as well. I couldn't tell you what that title says because I don't speak Italian. Anyway, so that's one of the other cast members worth mentioning. And I thought for a minute there's an actor in Innerspace that looks really similar to him, and I thought maybe he'd done a cameo in Innerspace as a nod to Fantastic Journey, but it turned out not to be him. So I don't think there's anybody else worth mentioning from. Oh no! Look who else is in Fantastic Voyage. I missed that. Scotty from Star Trek.
Where was he at?
I've only just seen that. I even missed that when I was researching. He is
What?
Dr. Sawyer, hypothermia technician. So there you go.
Oh, he's the
Must be one of the
wow.
guys doing the injection
Yeah,
needle or something like
injections. Yeah.
that. Thank you, Sir
I
Clueless, for sending out
completely
the word.
Yes, thank you, Sir Clueless. I completely missed that. I'm not even kidding. Nope.
Yeah, I was just checking out Shelby Grant. Looked like maybe she had a bit of a
Completely.
career. I do recognise her.
No.
Only 13 credits though.
Mm. Well,
So
I think so for me, Fantastic Voyage, it's a good story. Some of the effects hold, some of them don't. But the cast, I think Grant and Cora have good chemistry, but I do think that he on a lot of his things he was trying to go for like the stoic, strong, silent type, and it just missed the mark.
yeah,
I know
he's kind of playing the straight captain by the book rather than Captain Courageous.
yes,
Um,
exactly.
and I think he could have gone a bit bigger with the role. He plays him a little bit too seriously,
Safe.
and the
Yeah.
script is partially responsible for that. The script
Mhm.
doesn't give the characters a lot of nuance.
Yeah.
But it we'll come back to the story in a minute. So, anything else you want to say about the cast for Fantastic Voyage? I mean, I'm going to say for me, the standout actor is Raquel Welch in the film.
Yes, by a
She's the
long
most
shot.
naturally gifted. I'm not just saying that because she's just passed away. I mean, this was a film for me that proved that she was more than just a pretty face. She could act.
Mm,
You know.
yes, I agree.
Um,
She did manage to make Cora more than just a set piece or eye
yeah.
candy. She actually contributed to the overall story and plot and closing that out. So,
Yeah, and I mean, she got to do some fairly important things, which,
yes.
for a female character in the 60s in a film set in the future was reasonably rare. I mean, Uhura would be
Mhm.
another good example of that era. All right, let's look at the cast Innerspace. So, I mean, this has got some big names in it for
Yes, this
the
one
time.
surprised. I was so shocked when Dennis Quaid popped up and Martin Short and Kevin McCarthy, and then I saw Meg Ryan, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I don't there was a girl in here, and I don't think it was her because I don't this movie came out in 87, and I
Yeah.
don't think oh gosh, why can't I think of her name?
Well, I think I know
Kill
what
Bill.
you're gonna say. That the woman who voices Francine in American Dad is in the movie, and
Mm,
she plays the colleague that Martin Short works at the supermarket.
yep.
And I guess I should say quickly, just for anyone not familiar with the films, Fantastic Voyage is played very straight as a very straight, serious, semi-serious science fiction adventure movie, but quite
Mhm.
straight, quite serious. Innerspace is played very much for comedy, and is a comedy, goofy
Yeah.
action adventure flick. So tonally, the films could not be more different. But these are
Yes.
our three leading casts. Now, of course, Meg Ryan was already on the rise. I think Harry Met
Mhm.
Sally came out the year after this.
Yes. I believe you're
Um,
correct.
Martin Short already had a big established career on things like Saturday Night Live and so on. And Dennis Quaid had a couple of three or four heavy pictures under his belt.
Mhm.
But I think the biggest name of the three of them probably would have been Quaid at the time.
Yeah, by a long shot. And honestly, he is probably the one whose star has lasted the longest cuz like Meg Ryan she
Well,
kind of
too
she's
much,
yeah.
altering of the face.
Yeah, she sort of disappeared from in front of the cameras. And Martin Short is sort of like a hit or miss kind of. or like sporadic. There's the word I'm looking for. He's a bit more sporadic in his appearances now. But Dennis Quaid still kind of makes appearances and stuff like that.
Martin Short just did The Murder in the Building, or whatever that show was called. It's like a 10-parter, and there's a second season as well with Steve Martin. The Murderer in the Building, I think it's called, something like that. And that's worth checking out. I like them. I think all of them are really good in the film. And they're perfectly cast in their parts.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. The casting on this is it is top notch. I mean, this is the type of like chemistry that Hollywood tries to force, and like nowadays. But with this movie, it was just so perfect. They felt like they had genuine connection and depth. You know what I mean? Like it's like they made their characters come even more alive because it felt like they just jived together. That one right there, the American Dad mom's voice.
Wendy Shao.
Yes, when I watched this, every time I watch this, I have to remind myself it's not Uma Thurman, because like a few times when I've seen her, I've really have thought that she was Uma Thurman. I'm like, no, that's not Uma Thurman. But yeah, she does the mom on American Dad, and she was a I don't know how her character for me was not like a take it or leave it character, but I feel like if anyone else had been cast, it could have been. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, you remember her character. I mean, she's got a small supporting role as kind of Martin Short's potential love interest in his character's normal life.
Yep.
And I love it that she's in the end, and one of his final lines to her is, "Wendy, not a chance."
Yes.
And because now she's seen that he's quite a cool guy, she wants to go out with him, and he's like, "Well, you slept with everybody else at the supermarket." Because she's got that line where she says, "You know, Jack, I'm so confused because here you are in a club being a really, really cool guy, and you're the only one I haven't slept with at the supermarket, yet you're the only one I'm interested in." And he's like, "Is that a compliment? I can't quite work it out."
I can't figure it out. Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the other cast. Sorry, go say about her before we move on.
I was just gonna say, for like that instant right there, she could have come off as she could have come off a lot of different ways. Her character could have, but you know, she wouldn't have been memorable. It would have just been like, oh, she's excuse my language, she's the supermarket slut, you know, like no big, like her character really could have been whatever, but she really did such a good job. And like even her chemistry with Short's character is it's so good. Like they had a jive, they had a connection as well that felt genuine. Like you really believed that these were two people who like worked together, and she was just kind of doing her thing. And now that she sees he is actually cool, he is actually, you know, everything that you could want, and I do want him, and he finally being like, nah. It's so good. I think my favorite character in the movie though is Kevin McCarthy's. I love Victor.
I'm torn between him and Robert Picardo as Cowboy.
Let's
go through them in order because we could jump about a bit. So Kevin McCarthy, been around a long time. Sadly, no longer with us. Passed in 2010 at the ripe old age of 96. I mean, this is what you would call a character actor in the business. The person that always plays the doctor, the scientist, the police chief, those kinds of roles. But of course, he had one of the lead roles in the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the black and white version, the first version. And he also did the Biff Loman in the screen adaptation of Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, which is a really iconic play. And I think that they deliberately cast him in this because Invasion of the Body Snatchers had a cult following. And if you look, he actually did a cameo appearance as one of the men running down the street in the remake with Donald Sutherland. It's quite interesting.
That's fantastic. I didn't know that.
So both films have former Star Trek cast members, because you've got Robert Doohan in Fantastic Voyage in a cameo. And of course, this is the film that introduced me to Robert Picardo, and I've got to say, he's one of my favorite character actors, and I hear from everybody in the business he's an absolutely lovely man.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So he's someone I would love to work with. I think he was one of the things for me that made Voyager
that's
watchable.
What I was gonna say.
You know, because I found what Voyager was my least favorite of the Star Trek shows.
Voyager for me, I was much more, because up until that point, I had loved to see the interaction with the captain and the crew and how they were gonna handle the situation in front of them, and I actually found myself for the first time preferring the supporting characters. Like Chakotay was one of my favorite, and Seven of Nine, and
I mean, the lady who played Janeway is a great actress. Yes. I just think the character was written very straight, and I mean, I get that she kind of had to be that way to. And then, of course, what the show was originally supposed to be, it never quite became, didn't quite get there. So it's a show with a lot of flaws, but it's a show with lots to enjoy. But
yes, and it's really good. But I think you're right. I think like Picardo is. I'm so glad to hear that he is a sweetheart in real life, because everything I see him in, every time I watch him, I'm just like, gosh, he's so good. Like, some people be like, oh, well, if you're a one-trick pony, then you can't, like, what do you actually bring? But the thing is, people are trying too hard. Modern Hollywood's problem is there are no one-trick ponies. You have to be a singer and a dancer and a songwriter and an actress and a model and all these 50,000 things instead of just focusing on like mastering your craft. And so where you used to have these very strong character actors, now you have best friend material, like best friend character. But they can't be the best friend in every movie because they can't carry that type of character.
That's a bit of a mistake to go there. It's just you become sort of like jack of all trades but master of none. We also had Burnham Wells, who of course most people will know from Mad Max 2. He was also the bad guy in Commando, so he was kind of on a bit of a role playing villains at this time. I've heard he's batshit crazy in real life in the nicest possible way. And I mean that as a compliment, in the nicest possible way. Probably quite a fun guy to go down a bar, have a drink in a bar with.
I bet he looks terrifying. Like, look at that. Like, he just has that quality about him where
I'm right in thinking he's got almost no lines in the film.
I'm pretty sure. Yes, I am almost positive. I think he's got like 3.
Yeah, maybe even 1. And I love the bit where he pops the kid's balloon.
Yes, just. I wonder if that's where Despicable Me got it from.
Quite possibly. Fiona Lewis is a character actress that's done a fair bit. And that was a great scene where they're reacting to Martin Short's face going all weird, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just check out her credits quickly because I'm curious to see what else she's done. And is she still alive? She is.
Good.
Now, well, look at this. Look who she's married to. I did not know that. Fiona Lewis is married to Art Linson. You know who Art Linson is?
Whoa! I did not know that.
I did not know that either.
They've been married since 95, and we're almost in 2025. So we're 2 years from 2025. So they're almost 40. They're 30 years. 30 years married.
Yeah, that's a rarity. Yeah. So Art Linson is one of the best, I'm going to say, and most powerful producers in Hollywood.
Mm.
He produces a number of television shows now as well, still working well into his 80s. But the first time I ever remembered his name was when I saw it on the credits of The Untouchables, which I would put in my top 10 favorite movies of all time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I saw that at the
Absolutely.
cinema last year. They had a re-release of it around here, so I got to see it on the big
Honestly,
screen.
cinemas could make so much money if they did re-releases.
Yeah, we're lucky we've got this little independent cinema in London called the Prince Charles, and it shows a lot of old movies.
Oh, I
So
love
they're
it.
doing a trilogy of all three of the Better Tomorrow films. I think
Ooh.
next week. So there's a couple of other names of note. In fact, there's quite a few. So I'm trying to
This is
get.
this movie. Sorry, like because Innerspace, I had watched once. I had watched Innerspace once before that, but I had forgotten that I'd actually watched it. But I knew I'd seen Fantastic Voyage, but like watching Innerspace basically for the first time again, was just like shocking to see how many people like this was an A-list movie.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, there's a lot of people in it that have been in a lot of other things. I mean, you and I did a stream about Uncommon Valor.
mhm.
This is Harold
Harold
Sylvester from
Sylvester.
Uncommon Valor.
Yep.
Now, I have just written to him. I'm trying to get him on the channel for an interview.
Oh, yes.
So, if you're free, and if he says yes and you're free, you can come on and co-host it with me. So
Thank you for that
I
offer.
tracked him down on Facebook, and I fired off a letter to him. I haven't had a reply yet. We'll see.
Is he still acting? Because I don't think I've seen anything
I
from
think
him.
he's retired now. And I'll tell you the other person that I wrote to. The same day I wrote to him, I wrote to the guy that just died the other day. Oh God, now Munch from Law and Order.
Oh, okay.
I did a big post about him. Absolutely fantastic actor. He just literally just passed away. Richard Belzer. Richard
Yes.
Belzer.
I
So
remember, and I
he
was,
had
like, stunned.
he retired to a village in France, and I thought, well, he's not going to be doing a lot. And you know, he worked in stand-up comedy. I've always heard really nice stories about him in the industry, and I thought, let me try and get a letter to him. And I found somebody got me his email, and I fired it off. Never got a reply, and he must have already been in hospital near the end
Oh,
because he died of cancer, didn't he? So,
yeah.
But I mean, again, Henry Gibson, who was in the Blues Brothers.
Yep.
Jack, you're late again. You know it's coupon day. It's his big line in the movie.
Yes.
He always played these kind of
Oh.
sweet, strangely beguiling odd men.
It's his if I had to give him a character type as like a character actor, he
Yeah.
was endearing.
Yeah.
Like every role, he was just so endearing.
Yeah,
Just
quite. He came across as very sweet.
yes.
People might have seen him in The Nutty Professor. He had a part in Magnolia, which is also one of my favorite films of all time. Sadly passed away in 2009, so no longer with us. He would have been a great guy to interview. Now, there's a number of other sort of faces that I recognise. We talked about Wendy Shull already, who is the voice of Francine in American Dad. William Shallot, who played Dr. Greenbush, sadly passed away in 2016 at the ripe old age of 93. He had a really long acting career starting in 47 and was in various films. Look at that, 388 acting credits.
Wow.
The last in
That's
2014.
wow.
And you see him and you think, oh, I've seen that guy in lots of things. He did 2 episodes of Desperate Housewives. But there's quite a few films, and I mean, he's been in every TV show. You know, there's ER, of course. And,
Yes.
I'm sure we'll get a Law and Order somewhere,
Oh my
probably.
gosh, Shake, Rattle, and Rock.
Yeah, I remember that.
Whoa. Talk about
House Party 2.
Beethoven's second. Yes.
Quantum Leap, War and Remember. I remember him in
Oh.
War and Remembrance. He had a really big part in that. He was in both seasons, actually.
Mm.
Yeah, so I remember that. Gremlins.
Yep.
He was in the Waltons. So I mean, look, you're going really back now. Chips, Little House on the Prairie. So I mean, he did the rounds. So
Well, and like
that's a character actor with a
300
big career.
388 credits. He's just, I mean, you have actors nowadays, actresses talking about how they want to retire after like they want to retire after 10 years and they've got maybe 30 credits to their name, you know,
I think
and
that people that say that, I don't think they get into the industry because they love acting. I mean, I'm being a
mhm.
bit rude here, but I think people like that get into the industry because they want to become stars and make money.
Yes,
I
I
think
agree.
if you love acting and you love the craft, you will never want to retire from it. And he said, and I quote from his page here, he said he never gave retirement a thought, and that's why he carried on working as long as he could, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
he's like,
even these guys in the small roles,
mhm.
you're talking really
Lots of
caliber,
passion.
yeah, caliber cast. This guy Mark
Mhm.
Taylor, I remember in quite a few things, but I haven't seen him in much lately. I remember him in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids,
He's
which
the guy
came out.
from Arachnophobia, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
that's right.
yeah. Yeah, oh
I
yeah, there
mean,
it is right there. Yep. That's where I
yeah,
remember him from.
I mean, again,
Oh,
he's got 172 acting credits, so not a guy who was in and out. Still
yeah.
working. Last credit 2021. I didn't know they'd done a TV show of The Rocketeer. Is that an animation? Yes, it looks.
Uh
What on earth is that? Disney, what are you
nope,
doing?
nope, nope,
Not going to
no.
watch that. That looks rubbish. I mean, it's probably good for a 5-year-old, but I'm not 5, so. Um, Kevin
Indeed.
Hooks, I've seen in quite a few things.
Kevin Hooks, Kevin Hooks, Kevin Hooks, Kevin Hooks.
Yeah,
Gosh,
he's.
he looks familiar.
I mean,
Oh, Prison Break.
he's
That's why
mainly a
he looks
director.
okay.
So he started off as an actor, did 22 credits, but then went into directing. Look, he's got 93 directing credits, the most recent of which is 5 episodes of This Is Us. If you haven't watched
Ah.
that, that's a great show. He's even directed episodes of The Orville,
Oh,
Preacher,
nice.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Punisher. So.
I remember Prison Break. The reason that I know him from Prison Break is because when they were doing the story, see, and the thing too about Prison Break, it's such a good. Have you ever seen Prison Break?
I saw the first season and then I started watching the second and it kind of just went crap. Yeah, I lost interest.
Well, I hung in there for the whole thing. It did get a little bit it 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 did get a little wonky, I'm not gonna lie. Um, but I remember that there was like I can't oh gosh. What is it? I would need to look it up. Was it Golden Globes? I can't remember, but I do remember
Well,
that
we can talk about that on the Prison
he
Break stream.
there you go. I remember Kevin Hooks because he went up and he got his award, and I remember his speech was just so it was just so passionate and so endearing. And like nowadays, of course, they've been like the black director, like they would always give him that qualifier of he's a black director or he's a he was a black actor. Like they would add that
Yeah,
qualifier. But when he went up, they didn't say, that he was uh what is the word trailblazing for other black directors or other black like he was recognized for how good of a job he did, and then he got up there and his acceptance was just so it was just so good and it was passionate and you could tell he really loved what he was doing, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna hang on for this show. And yeah.
so we've just lost John Hora, who was the actor who played Ozzy,
Oh.
who's the guy that John Vernon assassinates in The Mole.
Mhm.
Spoiler alert. And what's interesting about him, I've just noticed, is he had only 3 acting credits and then became a cinematographer. Look,
Hmm.
So he got behind the camera. And look at that. He was director of photography on Gremlins and
Gremlins.
Explorers, two of my favorite movies,
Oh my
and
goodness.
Moonwalker. Now, all of those films, and Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, and Matinee. Matinee is a really good movie. That's very underrated.
Mm-hmm.
These are all before Innerspace. Now, that's quite weird for someone to go from being the DOP on feature films to suddenly doing an acting cameo on a movie. And you know why that was? Because I'll tell you why that was. He was a regular collaborator with Joe Dante. You can see, because The Burbs, directed by Joe
Ah.
Dante. Gremlins, directed by Joe Dante. And Wendy Schaal also regularly. So he probably said, look, you're not a bad actor. Do you want to play that role for me in Innerspace?
Yeah.
And it's nice when I work in the industry, and there is that camaraderie of you go to your go-to people,
Yeah.
because you're like a unit, and you know how people are going to function on set if they if you've worked with them before. And filmmaking is all about minimization of risk, and
Mm-hmm.
you want to minimize your risks before you get to set, and you do that by putting the right people on the crew. So I'm not surprised that Joe Dante, who's a very good director, actually we'll talk about the directors next, is someone who accumulates his little posse. Now, Dick Miller, who was also a regular collaborator with Joe Dante, we lost him in 2019.
Yeah.
You'll remember him. He was this guy in Terminator.
Yep.
Any of these guns is ideal for home defense. And hey,
And then
you
he gets
can't do
a
that.
hole blown in his chest. Yep.
Wrong. Yeah, he was a really well-known character actor, and what I heard about him on the industry grapevine was people loved working with him. So he always got offered a job, and they were always small parts, but directors always went back to him to give him another job. So he had 185 credits.
Wow.
And
See, like that's just amazing to me. Like anything like that is just so incredible. Cause like Terrence Wells, and I promise this will just be a very short
segue.
Segue, but when you think of when you think of people, I think I said Wells, Terrence Williams, and like the see, no, now I lost it. Like, have you ever seen They Call Me Nobody?
What you mean, the recent film?
No, like They Call Me. It's their old westerns from like the 60s and 70s. It's
No,
they call me
I
Trinity.
oh yeah, we talked about. There's a trilogy of them, isn't there?
Yes, there's a
And I'm
trilogy of them.
pretty sure I saw them when I was young. And I actually, after you told me that, I was trying to track down to see if there was a Blu-ray set.
Ah,
But I couldn't find it. I could
yes.
find the films individually, but I couldn't find them all together.
Terrence Hill. I don't know why I said Terrence Williams. Terrence Hill is his name, and he has more westerns than anybody. He is in more westerns than anybody else. But he didn't even crack the 100 actor credits.
Right.
Like I think he was only in he did like 70 or 80.
You've
credits.
got actors on here that really hitting those top numbers.
You've got them up in you're well into the triple digits with some of these 300, and look at this 301 right there.
Yeah, I want to give Kathleen Freeman a special shout out, because if you don't know who she is, you definitely have seen her, because she always got cast in this part. Grumpy woman with annoying face.
Mm-hmm.
And she's in the dream sequence with Jack in the supermarket where she's moaning about, and of course you might remember her in this role in the Blues Brothers.
Yes.
And she always played these kind of crazy mad ladies. Again, a much beloved actress, I believe. You can tell. I mean, an actor who's got a bad reputation in the business is not going to get hired 301 times.
Right.
So, now, is there anyone else worth mentioning before we move on to the directors, and then we'll talk about the films a bit more generally? So we got 4 people watching now. See,
Woo!
we hit our objective of 3 viewers. We're now over by 1. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. If you've got any comments or anything you want to make, stick them in the chat. We'll get conversing with you. These are the times when we can do that because, the small numbers is when it's fun and very personal and intimate. We're talking about Fantastic Voyage and Innerspace or any other topic that Lady Gravemaster wants to waffle on about for 15 minutes. Mainly those two topics.
I really do love to segue and go
Yeah,
on
I've got
tangents.
my Lady Gravemaster sand timer here on the segways.
There we
And
go.
with it, look, it's got a 9-line
9
apparel
line,
stick on it. Look
nice.
at that.
Love
And
it.
then, so I turn this up when you start talking, and then I'll let you know if you run out of time. So I think that's it for cast. I'll just let's just do the full check on here because I bet there's one other person in here that's got like a really tiny part who. Jenny Gago, lab technicians. That name sound familiar? Chuck Jones. Oh, look who else is in it. Rance Howard. You know who he is.
Do. Wow.
That is the father of the Howard brothers. As in director of Cocoon, Happy Days, Ron Howard, and the other one who played the space baby in the second pilot.
How would you like to be known as like Ron Howard's brother? Like, you know what I mean?
I wouldn't. He's had a rough time,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's had. I've got their biography book, but I think I lent it. Yeah, I lent it to one of my actors. It's called The Brothers, and it's a really good read. I was hoping for a bit more insight into their more recent activities, but it's mainly about their childhood. That's interesting, though, isn't it? And anyone else? I feel like Chuck Jones is a name I should recognize. Look, Joe Dante did a cameo in the film, so you could look out for him in the movie.
Yes.
Let me just see who Chuck Jones is. That name rings a bell. He died in 2002. Animator and then director in the animation division of Warner Brothers. And he was look, another collaborator of Joe Dante's.
Yeah.
So director, 377 credits, animation 91. I mean,
how?
So you even some of the extras in here are all kind of like Joe Dante's pals.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Oh, this is one of the. I just want to welcome TNTV Reactions. This is a guy called Tim who's got his own channel. He's down in Sussex. Okay. And I chatted with him briefly today, and he's one of the people who helped me get over 1,000 subs. So, Tim, great to have you come. Okay. So, all right. So,
and you say we got about another? Worth your time.
You've got about another 30 minutes. Is that about right?
Yeah. I've got some. I've got some family obligations that I gotta take care of.
No, that's fine because this is my second stream tonight, and I'm going to lose my voice soon anyway. So that's all good.
I mean, you could always let me segue. You could always let me. I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna be very brutal about cutting off your segue, so we stay on topic. All right, so let's talk about the directors. Let's go back to Fantastic Voyage first.
Okay.
So this was made by Richard Fleischer. I think you pronounced that, probably a German name. And I was curious to see what else he had done. And he's done some amazing films. Soylent Green, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Red Sonja, probably we shouldn't mention that too much. Wasn't a great film. He did the second Conan film.
I actually love Red Sonja. But I also, I fell in love with it when I was 8. And I think that it's more of like a nostalgia love as opposed to it being a good film. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I watched Red Sonja again recently, which, by the way, is being remade. And one of my friends is in it, and I'm trying to get her on the channel.
Oh, okay. Is she having high hopes for the remake?
I thought it's a happy shoot. I don't know about if it's any good, but it's the shoot's pretty happy.
Hey, there you go. At least it's not a production hell.
No, I mean, this is a man with some pretty solid old school. He's an old school director, 62 credits. Prince and Pauper, classic tale. Saw that one. Ashanti was a favorite of my mum and dad's because they love Michael Caine. He was the American director on Tora Tora Tora. That I didn't know.
Mm-mm.
So he went on. I mean, Fantastic Voyage is kind of midway in his career, and he had a pretty successful career. Stopped directing in '89, I guess. You know, by then the swimming pool didn't need fixing anymore. But
He is actually I know him because I've covered a lot of his films on my own channel, on other people's channels. He is actually without me realizing it, because when you're younger, you don't really pay attention to the credits. You're just like, "Oh my gosh, all these words at the
no,
beginning or all that, the scroll at the end." But like as I started, I'm like, "Man, I really love the Vikings. I really love Barabbas. I really love Fantastic Voyage. I'm like, oh my gosh, Conan the Destroyer. I love Red Sonja. Call from Space is good. Tough Enough is good." And I'm like, I'm really liking all these movies, and I started paying attention to whose names were actually in the credit, because you get older and you're like, oh, maybe because the same person was involved in their conception or their execution is probably why I love all these films.
yeah,
Um,
that's a great behind the scenes photo from 20,000 Leagues Under
yes,
the Sea. Look at that. I don't want to go off topic, but that's something I'll have to revisit. So,
that's
yeah,
beautiful.
Richard Fleischer, a good director. In my view, I don't think Fantastic Voyage is by any means is one of his best.
I'd have to say that belongs to Soylent. Like out of everything I've watched from him, it'd be a toss up between Soylent Green and Conan the Destroyer.
Yeah, I'd put Silent Green ahead of Conan. It's just a much more cerebral, clever movie. I think Conan
Fair.
Destroyer had its budget cut, and it showed
Yeah.
last minute. The budget got slashed like 50% or something. It was really high.
Yeah.
So I mean, sticking with Fantastic Voyage. So this is the older of the two. Question is, does it hold up? My answer is kind of yes and no, and I think we're kind of in agreement here.
Mm-hmm.
It holds up as a story. The story is good. You can see we've got the trailer on the right and some of the
Mm-hmm.
effects there. And these kind of effect shots work perfectly well. But then, and there's a lot of miniature work in it, which I always enjoy seeing. Even if you know it's
Yes.
a miniature, it's always fun to see it. But then you've also got scenes of people getting covered in spaghetti and rice paper and tissue
Yeah.
paper. And, and there's the James Brolin's probably an extra in that scene somewhere. So yeah, I mean, some of the stuff doesn't quite, when you watch it on Blu-ray and you see this set, for
Mm-hmm.
example, it does look a bit ropey. It looks more like something that someone conjured up for a prom Tim Burton experience rather than I'm inside the human body.
Yeah.
Um,
I would have to agree with that. The story holds up. Some of the effects hold up, but there are definitely points where you sort of get taken out of the movie because of the it just it could it and that's perfectly fine. Like the technology to try and grade something from 67 against like today's
yeah,
SFX, you cannot do that. I mean, think about how far we've come in just the past 10 years. So I'd say probably about 65% of the visuals hold up in this, because you can sort of suspend disbelief for it, and it's really the other ones
yeah.
that it's really only about that 35% that don't really cut it anymore.
I mean, the basic plot to this film, in case anybody doesn't know, is that this crew gets sent in an experimentation miniaturization device technology, so they can go inside this guy who's been injured, who's crucial to I think he's either a scientist or he's crucial to a peace conference or something. I forget. And they have to. He's had brain damage, and they have to go in and repair part of his brain. And there's the bad guy. There's a bad guy at work who's trying to mess things up.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of set it up initially that it's all the woman's fault, which is quite funny, I thought. And then they're trying to place blame on every character except for the one it is. But then you kind of know that actor always plays bad guys. This was
Mm-hmm.
quite funny that the guy's body was surrounded by these little plastic radar.
Yeah.
I always thought that was kind of cool, of like
Mhm.
that.
And they
Um,
have
oh,
ooh,
don't remember her doing that in the movie.
no, I don't.
Yeah.
But they have, they've got 1 hour to they've basically got an hour to take out the clot,
Yeah,
is what
before
they're
before they're gonna grow full size again or something,
yep.
I think. And it's kind of almost in real time from that point.
Mhm.
Because I think there's 20 minutes of preamble. The film is a bit of a slow burn at the beginning. There's a lot of very clunky dialogue, and it's like move miniaturizer to plate. Plate ready, sir. You know, there's a lot of that. Which doesn't hold up great. I think it's still an enjoyable watch. Kids gonna like it. Not too sure. I think they'd be pretty
Mm-mm.
bored. Um, but I still think it's fun, and the scene where the big white blood cell comes and eats somebody, I still found that
Yeah.
pretty creepy. I remember that giving me nightmares as a kid.
Yeah, and you're like, "What?" Like, they're there to help, but then, like, you think about it, even medication, that's why you get dosages because they anticipate your white blood cells actively working against some of the intrusive body of the medicine.
Yeah.
So,
So I
I
mean, what would you give Fantastic Voyage out of 10 on IMDb?
if I would probably give it I'd probably give it a 6.
Yeah,
Just
I'd
because
I'd yeah, I'd probably give it a 6.5, 7.
yeah, just because like we talked about, I feel like they were trying to go for stoicism and they missed. The chemistry of the two mains is pretty good, but other than that, like it feels like there was a lot more potential that could have been filled, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I mean it is played very much. I mean, it's supposed to be a sci-fi action adventure, but it's
Mhm.
played much more straight than I feel it needs to be. They could have had a bit more fun with it. There could have been a bit more
Mhm.
interesting banter between the crew. I think they could have strung along the who's the traitor a bit more cleverly as well.
Yeah. I think that was like the subplots like that they weren't really fleshed out as much as they could have been.
No. All right, so jumping over to Innerspace now, dealing with director first, of course, Joe Dante. I mean, this guy's a legend.
Mhm.
He's directed many of my favorite films, 41 credits. Um, just talk about a couple of them briefly, because I know we're running down to our last 20 minutes now. My favorite films of his are Matinee. I didn't particularly care for The Burbs with Tom Hanks, but I probably need to watch it again because I haven't. Now, I love The Explorers. That's a film I want to do a stream about.
Mm.
I got lots to say about that movie, but let's not get segued. Otherwise, I'll have to put myself on the Sand
The timer.
Kleiner Lady Gravemaster Clock of Doom, so, as it will hitherto be known. But yeah, I mean, so this is a solid director who knows what he's doing. He particularly likes
Mhm.
sci-fi and horror. He did do a movie called The Movie Orgy in 1968. We probably shouldn't watch that. Um, I don't know anything about that film, but the title doesn't make it very appealing. Um, yeah, I mean, and as we were saying earlier, Innerspace is a very, very different animal. It's
Mm,
you've cast actors who've got comedic ability.
yes. I never I never actually appreciated because people people are just like people think comedy is easy. They're like, "Oh, it's a comedy film. It's not hard." Like
Yeah,
you crack some jokes and, you have some slapstick and it's good. But when I had to for my very brief stage life, they're just like timing is everything. It's actually not. I mean, the timing is obviously important, but quite frankly, like if you do not have if you do not have the ability to get the people in the cast around you sort of on the same wavelength, everything falls flat. Like
yeah. I mean,
it's so hard.
you could tell everybody was having fun making this picture because it's got
Yes.
that energy in all the scenes. And Martin Short can be a very hit and miss actor for me.
Mhm.
I like him better when he reins it in, but
Yes.
he plays, he plays his physical comedy to the max here, and it works because that's what's required. Because the whole premise of the film is, it's a similar miniaturization mission, but the man on the miniature mission ends up in the wrong body because the science lab gets attacked by the bad guys, and it all goes a bit Pete Tong. And then, various escapades ensue.
Mhm.
Um, the first act is very much played on the fact that our sort of protagonist, our kind of Martin Short's character, is not a very confident guy. He's a bit of a nerd. He's got a
Mhm.
very average job and not doing particularly well in life. Doesn't do well with the ladies. And now he starts hearing voices in his head, which is
Yeah.
actually Lieutenant Tuck Pendleton trying to talk to him to say, look, I'm stuck in your body and you need to help me. All of that comedy works really well, I think. And then there's kind of the sort of Martin Love starts falling in love with his girlfriend. I didn't
Mm.
that bit I didn't believe. The one bit in the film that I went, hang on a minute, this is stretching it a bit, was when they kissed, and then the next thing you knew, he was in Lydia's body, and then he got to see that Lydia was pregnant because he saw the baby, which was actually a beautiful scene. But
Mhm.
I didn't believe that he would have got transported that easily and just happened to be in the mouth at that time. All just seemed a bit improbable to me. But that's a minor gripe. Um, the the
it
the
it
the
was
cowboy, go on.
the payoff, even though it was your suspension of disbelief had to be exceptional for that.
Yeah,
The payoff was worth it because you do get that beautiful scene of him getting to see the baby.
yeah. No, I did like that scene.
Mhm.
That's the Martin Short, of course, kind of finds his confidence through Jack ordering him to do things, and there's quite a nice thing where he still thinks Jack's giving him strength and he's actually not in his body at
Mhm.
that time. And I quite liked all of that idea. And then, of course, they send in a bad guy in to kill Jack in another device. All of this stuff where they were changing Martin Short's face and doing that stuff where his cheeks blew out. I'm not quite sure how
Yeah.
they achieved that, but it looked really good.
Yeah.
So
It
the effects in Innerspace hold up really well, I think. What do you think?
I agree. I think you can definitely see the 20-year jump in technology for sure. I think it's when they're behind his eye. It actually, I want to say it might be his ear.
Right.
Oh, my brain. Anyway, either it looks like they are actually behind either his eye or his eardrum. And it's like you could actually believe, okay, that's the nerve that is attached to um the the eye, and like that actually it actually looks like the membrane. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's just a bit it's just a bit more finessed.
Yeah, the interior of the body, some of those shots I think use some very early digital effects, not quite
Mhm.
CGI yet, but some of the early digital work, the type of work that you would see in Ghostbusters and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and all of that still holds up pretty well. There wasn't there wasn't a shot that took me out of the film.
No.
Kathleen Kennedy, destroyer of the Star Wars franchise, is one of the exec producers on it. So
No,
was,
she's not. Oh.
yeah, so was Steven Spielberg. I mean, it did kind of have a bit of a stamp of a Spielberg film.
Mm.
It's got a really good score by none other than Jerry Goldsmith, who's one of my favorite
Oh,
composers, sadly no longer with us, who
yes.
also did the score for Capricorn 1. Didn't you do a stream on Capricorn 1?
Uh, I did on not on my channel, but on a friend's channel. Yeah, we
Yeah,
did
I
do
think I caught a bit of that because I went to the cinema to see that last year.
it.
I'd
Lucky.
seen it. I've got it here, but I've never seen it on the big screen, and they had it on, and I was like, right, I'm going to see that. And it was shot by Andrew Laszlo, sadly also no longer with us. Now he has
Mm.
shot some pretty big movies. Yeah, he did First Blood. He did The Warriors. 41 credits in the cinematography
Wow.
department. And I mean, yeah, he was a man who knew how to shoot a film. He also did Streets of Fire, which is one of my favorite movies. You did a
Yes.
stream. You did a stream on Remo Unarmed and Dangerous, didn't you?
Yep. You and I have talked about Streets of Fire.
Well, I have got the Blu-ray of Streets of Fire, which has got all these great retro making ofs. Oh, I think I took it into the other room. It was here. Oh no, there it is. Yeah. So, and I watched it just the other night, and I forgot how actually it's quite a short film. It's very tight. Barely 90 minutes.
I remembered you talking about it, but then Steve Kenobi actually is the one. He was like, "Okay, you're gonna watch this," and I was so pleasantly surprised by it. I like it. It was so good. I was like stunned. I think that might even. I think his and my convo on it is on my channel. It was. I was like, this is. I don't know what I was expecting, but this is so much better. And first of all, can I just say I miss when movies exceeded my expectations and didn't subvert them?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got the soundtrack to Streets of Fire on vinyl in the shed. And I mean, it's interesting that Harrison Ford was originally supposed to play the lead.
Right?
And I wonder if that would have made it the financial success, because it was supposed to be a trilogy of movies, and I would have loved a trilogy of that world. But anyway, that's we'll talk about that another time. Jim D has mentioned Enemy Mine. I saw that at the cinema when it first came out with my very first girlfriend at the Prince Charles Cinema, which is now the cinema that shows all the older films. And Capricorn one's a tough one to get on disc. Yeah, I've got the DVD of both of those films. I don't have the Blu-rays.
Wow.
And I can't afford to get Blu-rays of everything. So, you know, how many different types of format are you going to have? But yeah, I mean, the late 80s going into the early 90s, really good period for film. And those people that have joined us relatively late, we were talking about what a great year 1988 was for films. And I've got a book coming out called 1988 soon on Amazon, about 2 or 3 months, which is my diary of that year, but also all the films are reviewed that I saw that year in the book. So, what would you give Innerspace out of 10 on IMDb?
I would rank it a little bit higher than Fantastic Voyage, just because the chemistry, like, it didn't take itself too seriously, which I think is what tripped up Fantastic Voyage. So I would give Innerspace probably a 7 or a 7.5.
Yeah, I'd give it 7.5. Isn't it interesting how on IMDb they both got exactly identical scores?
Do they? I did not see that. Do
6,
they?
yeah, 6 point. They both. Sorry, I'll share the screen again quickly.
No, you're fine.
They've both got 6.8. So there's Fantastic Voyage,
6.8.
and 6.8 on
I'll be
Innerspace.
dang.
Innerspace has got 108 user reviews. Fantastic Voyage has got 138.
Ooh.
It's winning on the user reviews.
There you go.
A lot of old fogies like me, you see, they remember it.
Well,
so
I think especially if, if people do more streams like this about endearing or classic or good old films, more people will search them out, and then maybe they'll start getting a little bit more traction too. So there's always that.
Absolutely. I mean, fantastic. Innerspace, I think, is a film that your kids could enjoy, because it's pretty fast paced. It's got a lot of good comedy, and some faces that your kids might even recognize. Fantastic Voyage is going to be more for the sci-fi nerd buffs among us. I don't, restless kids who spend a lot of time on their phones are probably not going to be too engrossed. But I'd like to see another movie set in this realm. I'd like to see another movie where a crew of a submarine have to go inside a person, or because these are the only 2 films that have done it, and I think there's room for another one. You know, there's probably only so many plots you can have about going inside a body, but I'd like to see another one. And with the
Yeah,
technology that we got now, it could look really good.
it could look really good. I think it'd be interesting to like have oh, you know what? There is another movie. I just thought Osmosis Jones.
I
It's
remember that, but I never
yes,
saw that. I never saw
like
that.
that's actually a pretty decent one too. I forget the plot of that movie. Like, but I think it's a virus that wants to start a pandemic basically.
Yeah,
Um
no, I remember the film.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, and
Um
it's an animation.
Yep, it is an animation. I think
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
I think it's
Lauren,
similar to Roger Rabbit because I think there are some live actions like because the guy gets a cut. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head. He gets a cut and he doesn't get antibiotics and it gets infected, like that whole thing.
well, how
But
funny that William Shatner is in it. So there is a Star Trek
there
cast
you go.
member in all three of these inside the human body movies.
There you go. Yes, so Osmosis Jones is another one, but it's animated, and obviously with animation, that's gonna hold up for quite some
Yeah, I
time.
mean,
Because
you know, I can't put that in this category because it's animation, and there
yeah,
has been I think there's been another animation film in this realm. Vaguely remember, can't think of the title,
okay.
but live action,
I'll take
just the two, I believe.
yeah, I believe it's
Listen,
just the 2. But yes, so you had Osmosis Jones, but I think it would be really interesting to do, one inside the body where it's, like, this is gonna this would probably be you'd either have to make it a comedy or a drama, but it would have to be somebody who was like went from an unhealthy lifestyle to a healthy lifestyle and see the transformation in their body
yeah,
and do it that way.
that's a great idea for a
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, I think
That's and then you could have it would be a bit like Inside Out. You'd have the
yeah.
characters in the body trying to cope with, you know, the person becoming a vegetarian
Yeah, or
or
the
eating too many burgers, you
cutting
know,
out
which
sugar. Yeah,
yeah,
like cutting out sugar, and then so now, like, you've got, the just for argument's sake, you've got, like, the energy cells are, like, trying to suck up, like, a
yeah.
sugar straw, and it keeps coming up dry, and they're like, "We don't have any energy. What are we doing? Oh my
I
gosh."
listen, this is a copyrighted concept right here. You heard it here first. That could be
There
a
you
movie
go.
coming soon. Well, look, we're nearly out of time.
Mm.
We got a little gang of 5 people watching us now. Thank you so much for tuning
Hi,
in, guys.
guys.
Do subscribe if you haven't, both to my channel
Yes.
and Lady G. And we're going to do more of these together, I'm sure.
Yes.
Um, so we do recommend both of these films with
Mm.
you know some caveats, but Innerspace I think is the one that's going to probably hold up longer over time. But I think Fantastic Voyage. I nearly said Fantastic Journey, which is a fun 1970s sci-fi show. Um, I think it will always have its fans,
Mm.
um, especially among the hardcore sci-fi. Lady G, what have you got coming up next? Anything you want to plug quickly?
Well, I am actually probably gonna do a stream later tonight on my channel, just a sort of like a catch-up stream, and I might do a little bit of gaming, just to kind of hang out with my peeps because it's been a little bit. But I am actually working for Gary over at the Nerdrotic channel. I
Oh
help
yeah, I tune into the Friday Night Tights now and then.
Yes. So I'm helping him with a couple well, helping. He does all of the heavy lifting. I do whatever he needs. It I can in like a support capacity. But he I will tell you this. Uh great great stuff, more incredible stuff coming from him. I mean, stuff he always puts out is always great, but he's got some incredible stuff coming out. And guys, everybody in the chat, if you're watching this, as at the rerun stage, Guys, make sure you subscribe to Lance's channel because he does amazing interviews. He has so much knowledge, and I think he might actually out nerd me on a couple of things, which is hard to do if we're being perfectly honest.
I
So,
think people are scared of me for that reason because I have got a pretty good film knowledge here.
yes, your depth of knowledge just blows me away. And you know, because I remember I had brought up how much I love the 1990 TMNT film, and you just like you went into this whole array of things that I was just like, whoa. And we talked about the Keaton Batman. Um
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that was also you knew so much, and I was just like, whoa, like I want to be you when I get older. I want to have this knowledge. So you are just a wealth of information and personality and knowledge, and I love it. And your channel is doing amazing things. So congrats on the
1,000
1,000.
subs. Now I've got to
Yes.
work out how to monetize myself and do all that bullshit, which someone's probably going to need to give me help with. TNTV said better than Fantastic Beasts. I'm not a fan of those movies. I watched the first one and it did nothing for me.
I think if you had never seen any of the other Harry Potter films, you might be okay with them, but they don't have the same magic as the Harry Potter
No.
books or even the films.
Yeah.
And I agree. You put the comment up a little bit earlier. If you get Brendan Fraser on, please call me.
Get Brendan Fraser for the whale crossover. I'm not sure what a whale crossover is.
He did he did the I think he's talking about when we said to go from an unhealthy to a healthy lifestyle, because Brendan Fraser just did The Whale, and so now do Brendan Fraser in a crossover of that movie. But I think that's what he means. I
Yeah,
thought sorry, go ahead.
that would be a good idea for a
Mm,
movie.
agreed.
We want to be Lance when we grow up. I'm not too sure about that. Mate, I think you should aim higher.
You're good people, Lance. We love you.
No, I'm battling quite a few I'm fighting a war on quite a few fronts at the minute, so there's a lot going on. My health isn't too good either, so I'm determined to make the best of 2023. So
That's an outstanding mentality to have, and I will pray for you.
I'm gonna get as many people on the channel as I can, and I'm gonna do as much as I can. I'm gonna get as many of my scripts out as I can. And for those people watching, if you don't know, I'm an author. I've got books on Amazon. Just look me up, Lance Dean Anthony Nielsen. If you like your sci-fi, I've got a sci-fi series on there, and I've also got some of my film scripts on there, including the film that I spent 3 years trying to make, and it didn't happen. And that's a whole other stream about that. But yeah, so look, guys on the chat, thanks for coming in and chatting about the stuff with us and giving us your input. I always like to hear what people think about these things. She understands me, whoever that may be, and it's been really fun having you all on, guys. Thanks, Sir Clueless, for spreading the word about the stream as well. Guys, I'm doing a weekly roundup every Wednesday around 9 o'clock UK time. Just all the films and stuff that I've seen. I know that's not a good time for you, Lady G, but if you ever can make it, come on, you'd be very welcome.
I appreciate
And
it.
I'm going to try and do something every weekend. It won't always be this time on a Saturday. Sometimes it'll be, other times, but just keep an eye on the channel, various bits and pieces. Interviews happen when they happen. I always work around the guest. So whenever the guest has got time that's convenient for them, that's when we do the interview rather than around my schedule. All right, guys. So I guess that's it from us. So thanks very much for tuning in, supporting the channel, giving Lady G a shout out as well. And don't forget to always tell the people that you care about you love them. If you haven't done that recently, pick up the phone and do it now. And I'll see you again real soon. And